Welcome to Belief, Being, and Beyond with your host, Granddaughter Crow.
I think I must have been about 10 years old, and I was like, hi, everybody, welcome to KJOY. The skies are beautiful today. The temperatures in this, I used to pretend that I had a radio show. So this is flowing right in line. So
Well, hey, now you do. Congratulations.
I'm
So,
loving it.
so funny because I used to do the same thing. I had my own radio show. Do you remember those like peach and pink and minty green boom boxes that you
Yes.
would record?
Yes.
And now I'm on podcasts. I mean, I love this. I know.
So, hi everybody, Granddaughter Crow here. Welcome to yet another episode of Belief, Being, and Beyond. And today I have found a couple of gems for you. Beautiful and wonderful Lana Jinlin and also Karina Muller. Oh my goodness, they are doing some wonderful things. They've got HeartCentric, which is a female-owned coaching and intuitive tools, spiritual jewelry business. And HeartCentric empowers people to connect to their inner wisdom with the help of a pendulum. So, hi everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Karina, Lana, say hello to the beautiful people.
Hi,
Hello,
everybody.
beautiful people. We are so excited. Thank you so much, GDC. You are absolutely adorable, and we're thrilled to be here.
Hi, everyone. Yes, we are really excited to be talking with you, and you just never know what comes out of these conversations. So we're just here to chat and inspire people, hopefully.
I love that. And more than just business owners, you guys have to check out HeartCentric and online. I think it's www.hcdivine.creations.com. I'll drop it in the subject line so you all can see it or listen to it and find them. Today, I really wanted to celebrate not just them being here, but they have a book coming out, Pendulums and Intuition, practical advice for trusting your inner wisdom. And this is available by Llewellyn Worldwide. It's coming out here June 2024. So whenever you watch this, you could either pre-order it today or pick it up later on. Anyway, I really am going to let's do round robin. We'll start with Karina first. Karina, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and maybe your spiritual path and maybe what got you into pendulums?
Oh, thank you so much, GDC. So excited to be here. Well, it's a really good question because I definitely did not set out to be a pendulum expert, but the universe thought otherwise. I have spent 30 years in corporate America, doing marketing and strategy and business development for big companies. And half of that I spent as a coach and a consultant. Basically, I'd go into a company and I'd help them with a project or help them solve some sort of a business need. And whoever brought me in, my client, typically at the VP or the C-suite level, would just realize that I'm like the safe space. And before I know it, I'm coaching them. I'm coaching them on their corporate issues, their personal life, how to really truly manage their teams to get the most really joy and results out of their business environment. And one day, this was over COVID, I decided I'm going to go get my coaching certification because I've been doing this work for 15 years and I might as well be legit. So I go sign up to get my life coaching certification at the Learning Journeys International School of Coaching. And that's where I meet Lana. And Lana and I, we're being put in all these breakout rooms because the universe is conspiring to bring us together. And when we finally met in person, we started collaborating on coaching projects. And how we got to pendulums, I'll actually let Lana tell that part of the story because it is quite an interesting part of the story. So I'll turn it over to Lana.
Well, thanks, Karina. Thank you for saving that fun nugget for me. Yeah, my background, I actually, both Karina and I, fast forward, after we had met, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that. We learned that we come from the same part of the world. We were not born in this country, but the reason I bring that up is because I grew up in a multicultural home. I was very interested in other people and other cultures. I studied anthropology in college, and then I went on to get a master's degree in museum studies. And I worked in various natural history and art museums for the first half of my career. Then I decided I wanted to see what was on the other side of nonprofit, and I did go into corporate, and I did work in marketing, product marketing, and brand marketing. From there, I left to be part of a startup. I launched a 34,000 square foot creativity center with a coffee house and many different ways to really get creative. And from there, I ended up starting my own coaching and consulting business where I was coaching clients one-on-one and doing marketing consulting for mostly smaller nonprofits. During COVID, like so many of us, struggling with, okay, what is going on here? What is the meaning of my life? How does it impact others? I decided to get my coaching certification as well. I was working with a life coach myself, and she really inspired me because I saw what a transformational experience it was. So I enrolled in the same program as Karina. We met when COVID restrictions started to lift. We met in person, like she said, and as we believe that everybody's innately creative, and so we wanted to find a creative outlet for ourselves. So we started making bracelets and different jewelry purely as a creative outlet. And one day Karina was wrestling with a question. I don't even remember what the question was. She was struggling with something. And I said, well, have you ever tried using a pendulum to make a decision, to get your answer? And she looked at me and she was like, what are you talking about? What is that? And I showed her how to use a pendulum with my necklace. I mean, anything weighted on a string can be a pendulum. And we'll dive into that a little bit later. But she was floored, and the following week we met up and she had a present for me, and she breaks out this like beautiful ornate pendulum that she had made for me, which I was so touched. We started making pendulums purely for fun. One thing led to another. Our friends, started to wonder and were interested, and we were invited to do a couple of local pop-ups. And from there, it just spiraled. I mean, we don't know what happened other than we truly surrendered to the universe. We listened to our own intuition and let it guide us. And here we are. It hasn't even been 3 years. And I don't know, crazy things have happened, crazy good things. So we know we're on our path. We have lived everything that we write about in our book. So.
I love that. I love that. Again, it's Pendulum and Intuition book coming out here shortly by Llewellyn. So one thing that I really, in doing my research and just actually spending time here, and then of course the name of HeartCentric and Divine Creation, I really kind of wanted to get your take on what you're talking about when you say your inner voice, when you talk about your higher self, because to me, this is so important. And I've got a little story on why. This morning, I have a tree and it has little chickadees. They've drilled a little hole in this hollow tree and they've been flying in and out. Today, my husband says, hey, come here. And I look out, little tiny, must have been this big, really, really small, maybe an inch or two. Little chickadee took its first leap out of the nest. And me and my husband got to see it. And the reason why I'm telling you this story is because it made my heart leap, and it kind of brought tears to my eyes, because I'm like, he listened to his inner voice. He had wings and he knew it. He listened to his inner voice. Come on, baby, you could do it. Keep listening to your inner voice. Keep listening to your inner voice. And then I'm like, oh, and then we're on today. So the
Uh-huh.
inner voice. So tell me a little bit about the inner voice, the higher self.
Absolutely. So I'll start, and Lana, please jump in. Now, we all have that really wise, intuitive side of us. Our intuition is really, truly our superpower. And our society trains us to not necessarily listen to the intuitive voice, but trains us to follow our rational mind. But our rational mind, our conscious mind, is very ego-driven and limited. But when we let go of what we think we believe is the truth and surrender to what is possible, we can uncover all kinds of possibilities, magic, and miracles, and bring all beautiful things like wisdom, freedom, joy, and laughter into our lives, and really truly live in a state of flow. So when we surrender to that voice, when we start paying attention, we can allow all sorts of guidance on any decision, big or small, to really truly show up for us. And it is coming from a place of the biggest, greatest authenticity. Our higher self, our intuitive wisdom, really wants what's most optimal for us, right? So we can choose to live our life with trial and error, question our decisions, not really being confident in our choices, or we can surrender to that voice and we can start listening and we can start following that guidance that is really always with us. And when we do, we can really observe the magic and the miracles that the universe is constantly delivering to us every single moment of every single day.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's really about our higher self knows more than we do, right? Our higher self is connected to source, to the divine, to God, whatever, resonates, whatever term resonates with you. It's part of this higher collective consciousness that we are all a part of. And we are given this opportunity to have this human experience, and we all have a purpose here. We all have a mission, more than one, but we have a blueprint, if you will. And we are taught, as Karina said, that, here's how you should be. Here are the rules. Here is what society and my culture, my family of origin, my friends, my environment. We have all these voices that tell us what we should be doing, who we should be, how we need to show up. However, we coach under the philosophy that nobody has the answers for you better than you, right? Because you are a sovereign human being, and it's up to you to make decisions that are in alignment with who you truly are. And this is why we are so passionate about the pendulum as a tool. The pendulum is but one tool that you can use to access that inner wisdom, that intuition, that innately we are all blessed to be born with. And it is such an amazing tool, and for so many reasons. But when we talk about the higher self, we're really talking about a connection to who we truly are, our soul connection.
I love that. Yeah, mic drop. That was perfect. So, speaking of connecting to your higher self, how do you do that with a pendulum? I got
Well,
mine.
so glad you asked. Yes, so it's
Adorable.
cool. I mean, is everyone going to see this, or are some people just going to tune in and they're not going to be able?
Some people, hey, if you are listening to this where you get your podcast and you want to see what Lana and Karina are doing and GDC, hop over to my YouTube channel and at Granddaughter Crow. But yeah, go ahead and show us. Tell us, show us. What do you got?
Well, so we handcraft all of our own pendulums. They're all one of a kind, very unique. But like we said, anything weighted on a string can be a pendulum, right? It's all about creating that motion. And a pendulum really consists of some kind of weighted tool. We like to use gemstones and crystals and all sorts of different metals and different, stones. But again, a pendulum can be made out of anything. But we do believe crystals and stones have a lot of healing properties that can really benefit and aid in your manifestation process, or just, your connection to yourself. You want to love your pendulum. But anyway, you always want to hold the pendulum in your dominant hand. And what you're looking for, you're not going to move your hand. You are co-creating. You're working with the universe. Again, your spirit guides, God, whoever you choose to call in to ask for help. And it's a tool that shows you emotion. It moves a certain way for yes questions. It can answer yes and no questions, and a certain direction for no. And the two directions are going to be very distinctly different, so that when you do begin to ask your questions, you're going to get a very clear visual movement for yes and for no. So it's just a really easy and accessible way for you to extract your own answer. You're just guiding yourself from, at a default, your subconscious. It's really extracting what's buried deep inside of you and bringing it to the surface in a visual way. Karina, you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like Lana said, if you don't specify the source of where you want to receive your answers, you will go to your subconscious mind, and your subconscious stores everything you've ever learned, experienced, like every book you've ever read, every show you've ever watched, every feeling and emotion you have ever experienced. It's all within us. So it's all available to us as a repository of all this great wealth of knowledge. And why not be able to leverage all of this that's available within us for daily guidance? For, like I said earlier, any questions, big or small. And it can be something as simple as, is it a good idea for me to go through that Starbucks drive-through for coffee this morning? Or is it time for me to quit my 9 to 5 and start my own spiritual business? Whatever it is that you're wrestling with, that guidance is available. But if you are looking for a different source of guidance, maybe it is your divine team. Maybe it's your team of angels and spirit guides, your higher self. All you have to do is specify that source at the beginning of your pendulum session and invite them in. And you can confirm that they're there with you by asking a question: dear divine team, are you currently with me at this very moment? And you will get an answer through your pendulum, as long as you know your yes movement and your no movement. And just to backtrack a little bit, in order for you to figure out your yes and your no, like Lana said, you hold your pendulum in your dominant hand. And Lana, if you want to just demonstrate it really quickly, all we do is just go ahead and say, show me my yes movement. There you go.
My yes is back and forth. It's going to be consistent with any pendulum that I used, but Karina's is different than mine. Yours might be different as well. Granddaughter Crow, so everybody needs to calibrate it. Yeah. And then you'll do the same thing. You can just say, please show me my no, and watch what happens.
There you go. And the pendulum changes movement. So all you really need to do is ask for your yes, watch for the movement, ask for your no, watch for a different movement. And if you ever forget, don't worry. All you can do is just ask again, and you'll get your yes and no. And now that you have your yes movement and your no movement, you're ready to dive in and ask all kinds of questions. We always recommend that you start by just getting used to how the pendulum works with you and your energy. Ask a few questions you already know the answer to, such as, is it snowing outside? Or did I drink coffee this morning? Am I wearing a black sweater? whatever it is that you know the yes or no to, just go ahead and ask a few questions and get comfortable with the pendulum movements. And once you're ready, once you're really comfortable, then go ahead and dive in. We do recommend that when you start working with a pendulum, don't go to just the most, life-changing topics your very first day. We recommend start slow and get comfortable and get confident. For example, it could be something as simple as, is it optimal for me to eat hard-boiled eggs for breakfast this morning? And let's say you get a yes to that, you go ahead and eat your hard-boiled eggs and you're like, oh, so glad I had those eggs. I felt satisfied and energized and felt full, and my morning went really well because I was focused and clear. Just notice what is happening when you follow that guidance. And when you notice and you express gratitude for the good things that are happening as a result of the guidance that you're receiving, you are growing your confidence level in your pendulum experience, in accessing that inner wisdom and actually following it.
Yeah, your pendulum is your access to your intuition, and your intuition is really, it's like a muscle. It's the more you use it and the more you trust it, the more in alignment you're going to be with yourself. And that's when your life really just starts to flow in a more natural and easy and joyful way. So the pendulum really, it allows you to build that trust in yourself. And hey, most people we know have a really hard time trusting themselves. Oftentimes, especially our clients that we see who we coach, people tend to doubt themselves and they get kind of stuck in that rational mind, which is very easy for us to do. We're all human, but it is our egoic mind. It does have a voice that tries to overtake and get loud, right? And so we need to learn how to really quiet that voice. And a pendulum is a great tool to help you do that and to really learn how to trust yourself, to the point where maybe, someday you won't need a pendulum anymore because you'll just automatically know, or very intuitively know. And some people use pendulums their entire life. I can't imagine that I would never be a pendulum user. I love it. It's my tool of choice. But there are many ways to get there. The pendulum is just a very quick and accessible way. It gives you a very visual response. It's easy to get started working with a pendulum, but like anything else, it's a practice. And there are many things that you want to keep in mind in order to work with a pendulum ethically, to get accurate answers, to get accurate results. So that's where, we decided to write a whole book about it. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. So I have a yes or no question.
Yeah.
Do you guys have an extra 15 minutes? Because I'm digging it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I
You
do.
bet.
Okay. My next question is, this is what's weird for me. I'm like, my no is a freaking circle. It just,
That's totally normal.
Totally normal. Yeah.
what's so funny is I haven't worked with this in years. And it took me back to, wait, it's always been like that. But since you're the pendulum experts, I wanted to ask you, is that okay that my no is like, whoa?
Of course. Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's movements are unique to them. We do not work with pendulum boards. Some people like to use pendulum boards and, really decide what their answers, what their movements should be. We just really believe that it's all about the energy flowing with your body. And you will have a natural yes movement and a natural no movement. And that way, when you know those movements, you never need a board. You just whip out your pendulum, you're stuck in traffic, you want to make a quick decision, and you're ready to go. It's always at your fingertips. So just make sure you have one in your purse, in your car, on your desk, by your nightstand. I mean, like obviously Lana and I do, because we're total pendulum dorks that way. But
there are times where you need some advice. You want to give yourself advice that's right for you. So the pendulum, like you said, the movements, I mean, there are very typical movements, and people's yeses and nos will differ. So back and forth, side to side, a clockwise circle, a counterclockwise circle. It can go diagonally. It can just stop altogether. For me, that's my not now movement, which means I'm not ready to receive that information. It's not the right time. You can calibrate your pendulum for yes, for no, for maybe, and for not now. And like I said, maybe is just what it sounds like. You're really not sure, and not now it's just not time. It's not time for you to receive that information. So once you calibrate your pendulum, it's going to be the same yes and no, maybe not now movement with any pendulum you use, unless, like for you, it has been, you said, a couple of years since you've worked with the pendulum. And in that case, sometimes, things change in our lives and we grow as people and we can change. So it's always a good idea to calibrate your pendulum again, especially if it's been a long time since you've worked with it.
Love it. I'm going to ask another technical question. What is it? Ideomonitor reflex. Ideomonitor reflex. And I'm going to make ideomotor. Okay, let me ask it again. So tell me, what is ideomotor reflex?
Sure. Yeah. So the ideomotor reflex is really, it is a term that was devised by a researcher and scientist in the 19th century. And the ideomotor reflex is really, we have a heart, mind, body connection. It's been studied by the Heart Math Institute and, other, that are right. Our heart actually, interestingly enough, sends more signals to our brain than our brain sends to our heart. So this heart-mind-body connection is actually what is in conjunction with spirit, with the universe, with your higher self. We are co-creating to receive the answers that are meant for us. So what is actually happening, and the science behind how the pendulum is moving, is that the signal gets sent to your brain. You're bypassing your subconscious. So this is what happens. The signal gets sent to your brain, and your brain sends a signal down your arm. So you're keeping your hand very, very still, but in reality, it is moving, but it's moving so small, so minuscule that you don't know it, you don't notice it. So it's bypassing that rational mind and going directly to what is in your heart, in your gut, in your subconscious. And that's how you're receiving your answer for yes or for no. And that is how you know definitively, this is my answer, this is my truth. It's really powerful. It is such an empowering experience. And, when we get a yes or no answer, and maybe it is a big question in life, like, is it optimal for me to end this relationship or whatever it may be? You may get a certain answer, and it doesn't mean you're going to go, quit your job the next day or end your relationship tomorrow or whatever it is. But it is one data point in time that allows you to guide yourself in a very authentic way.
I love that. I
Makes
love that.
sense. And we always recommend just keep checking in with yourself, keep asking all the questions, and always focus. The way that you want to really word the question is making it about your highest good. What is the outcome that is for your highest good? We're not really we're not really trying to get into other people's subconscious minds. We really are just trying to uncover our own truth. So as an example, rather than asking, does Johnny want to go have dinner with me tomorrow night? We don't know what's in Johnny's subconscious, nor should we care. It's really all about what's good for us. So we want to ask, is it optimal for me to go have dinner with Johnny tomorrow night? So bring it back to yourself, bring it back to what is here and now. And the answer that you will receive is the answer, what you truly are believing is in your highest good at this very moment in time. But remember, circumstances change. New things are occurring every day. The future is fluid. So you may check in with the same question a week later or 2 weeks later and get a different answer. That's okay, because just remember, things are always evolving. Keep your questions rooted in your highest good and in the present moment.
I love that. I work with a lot of different modalities, and I'm also like a spiritual coach or a intuitive reader, whatever you want to call it. But what's really interesting is a lot of times I tell my clients, watch how you are asking the question, watch what your question is, to the point where sometimes they ask such a long question, the answer is yes, no, and maybe not now. And
Yeah.
so, can you guys talk just a little bit more about when a client is going, oh, I love that you guys say, is it in my, optimal? Is this correct for my highest good? I love that you're asking that. But when somebody starts, their pendulum starts like, what the heck? And they're getting yes, no, no, and it's getting confused. I really have a belief that it's because the person isn't settling their energy and actually they need to hone the question. What do you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. How you ask the question is a huge part of how you work with your pendulum and your pendulum practice. You're definitely going to confuse the pendulum if you stack your questions and you ask, more than one yes or no question at a time. The pendulum won't know which question you're referring to. When we think about the pendulum, a lot of times people think that the pendulum has the power and the magic, and the pendulum is just a tool. It's you who holds the power and the magic. So there is an art to how you ask the question. As Karina said, you want to keep it about yourself, and you want to try to keep it about the present moment. I mean, it's okay to ask about, is it optimal for me to attend the wedding in Colorado in June or whatnot, but the pendulum is not a predictor of the future. We don't know what the future holds. The future is really fluid. So yes, you want to ask one question, a yes or no question, and allow the pendulum to show you the answer. If you're more experienced, you can go ahead and ask the next question, but we recommend when you first get started, you can ask the question, and once you receive your yes or your no, your maybe or your not now, you can just simply stop the pendulum and then ask the next question. Or just give it enough time in between your questions to recalibrate and really understand what it's showing you. Is it still a yes, or is it going to start moving in another direction? Oftentimes we see people stack their questions and they don't give enough time in between. But yes, one question at a time. Otherwise, you will confuse yourself and the pendulum.
And the more you work with a pendulum, your pendulum practice is really truly your practice. The more you work with it, the more fluid the whole practice becomes. So you will develop a cadence for asking the questions, receiving the answers. You will intuitively know when it's time for you to ask the right question. Sometimes before you even complete a thought, you will have an answer show up. So the more you work with your pendulum, the easier the practice becomes and the more intuitive the practice becomes to you. So just keep working with it, keep practicing, and know that this is just, the magic is already within you. You have the answers to all the questions that you're seeking the answers to. Everything is at your fingertips. Your superpower, your intuitive wisdom is available to you very, very easily, quickly, and simply.
I love that. So, pendulums and intuition. By this book, there is so much in here, more than what these two ladies are throwing down. They talk about, the different stones that you can have. There's all of these different, there's so much packed in here, as well as they do coaching sessions online. So if you're digging this vibe, go to their website, www.hcdivinecreations.com, where you can look at the pendulums that they do. They even have necklace pendulums, so you can go undercover when you're in your corporate job and you could go, oh, well, I'll just go out to my car. And you're like, no, this is not optimal for me, or
Yes,
yes,
yes.
this is optimal for me. And also you can do, different classes. They have some things on the pendulum. So check out their website. Is there any last thing that either of you would like to share with the audience that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny that you bring up the corporate, because I've spent, many decades in corporate, and with some clients of mine, I'm like, the right people, I'm like, let me show you how to clear your chakras with the help of a pendulum. And we'll be in a conference room, 2 people, I'll be helping them with the process, and they're like, oh my gosh, I am ready to face my next meeting. Thank you for giving me that energetic cleanse. And it's so incredibly powerful. We'd love every executive to have a pendulum at their desk. That's just a
Absolutely.
little
And I would
dream of
add to
ours.
that because I was going to also add, so that's a great segue. There are so many ways to use a pendulum beyond just yes and no questions. And Karina just gave one example, and that's clearing your own energy, clearing your chakras, checking your chakras. There are endless ways to use the pendulum. You can use a pendulum to test for food sensitivities. You can use a pendulum to help you find missing objects. You can use a pendulum to help with your, career, relationship, health in so many different ways. We use a pendulum to prioritize. I mean, again, there's just an endless way to use pendulums. So if folks are interested in learning more about how to use this tool, we would love to hear from them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both. My
Thank
heart is so
you.
open, and I
Oh.
really enjoy what you're bringing, because you're not only bringing a tool to help people tap into their own intuition, but there is another message here of being heart-centric and trusting yourself. So thank you so much for being on the show. So thank you, listeners. Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of Belief Being and Beyond with your host, Granddaughter Crow. Please like, subscribe, and share. I know there are people who need their pendulum personal assistant in the office, incognito. So share it with your little friends, and we will see you on the flippity flip.